This is the story about Kasungu National Park, as told by Mike Labuschagne, who has been working there as a ranger for more than 30 years. He got funding from the US-based animal rights organisation IFAW, the International Fund for Animal Welfare, to help the elephants of Kasungu. He picks up the story.
My task in Kasungu started due to an investigation by the British High Commission and the German Embassy in Lilongwe, it's the capital of Malawi. So your two diplomatic missions there, the British and the German, did an investigation and found that due to government corruption, Kasungu National Park was a disaster zone, and its elephant population had been reduced from over 1,000 to only 45. The report was completely accurate, both in terms of the collapse of the large mammal population, but also the cause, government corruption.
How does government corruption kill elephants?
Corruption is getting a salary and not doing your job on the broadest field. It doesn't have to be killing an elephant and illegally selling its ivory. If your job is to patrol the park and you get a salary for it, and you do not do your job, that is corruption on a broad scale. And that alone is enough to allow a park to slowly crumble into a chaotic area that is filled with value, surrounded by poor marginalized communities, and that's your recipe for disaster. That's your recipe for a herd of 1,000 elephants being reduced to 45.
What was the reaction to the report? What happened next at Kasungu?
Well, it was very embarrassing for the government, quite rightly so. And I had just been asked to run an intervention with a British conservationist by the name of Mark Hiley, and this was hugely successful. And so at the closing and handing over ceremony of that intervention, the Minister of Tourism asked me to go to Kasungu and sort out this problem. Remember, I had started working with them from 1992. I've got an excellent record of superb results, because in my opinion, it's impossible not to be successful. When it comes to anti-poaching, it's impossible not to be successful. It's
unless you're not doing your job, like you'd identified, like the report identified.
You hit the nail on the head. If you are corrupt, it's possible to spend a lot of money and not address the poaching. If you are capable and honest, it's impossible to fail. It can't be done. The first thing you've got to do is to get into the landscape. This modern idea that a conservationist is some urbanite sitting in London, Washington, Berlin, a desk-bound urbanite, is a conservationist, an African conservationist. It's ridiculous. So as soon as he asked me in July 2015, I set up an informant network that operates to this day. That allows you now to understand the dynamic. Who must you get rid of? Who are the main players? How do you transform a fundamentally rotten law enforcement operation into a highly efficient one? So there's two processes. You take really good informants, you place them there, and then you start recruiting informants who have access to your criminal syndicates. If you are sitting in Washington, Berlin, or London, and you imagine that by some mystical power you can change what's going on in Africa from there, then you are a fool, and you need to be removed from the picture, just like at a lower level, the corrupt ranger must be put in jail or at least chased away.
Who was funding you and your operation between the reports effects taking place and present day?
I did a budget, and I believed that to start the transformation process for the first 6 to 8 months, I needed $40,000. So 2 groups were interested, one of them being IFAW. Now, I had a long relationship with IFAW. I got grants from them on previous projects, and it worked well. They gave me a grant. I did what I set out to do. I gave them a report, and they were happy. So then I asked for $40,000. I got $40,000. Now, as again, I want to, you need to understand. If you go into the park and start doing the right things on $40,000, you can't fail. If you got 4 million, you cannot succeed. It's impossible. You're not going to succeed.
At the time, what was your understanding? What was IFAW's bigger aim with Kasungu? Had they begun their room to roam policy, for example?
No, not at all. IFAW, whatever they may be, they are not a conservation organization. What they are a fund, and it's in their name. And their expertise is raising funds. And that's what they are. That's the alpha et omega of IFAW. They raise funds. When I was in Liwonde, I saw electrified fencing as a huge problem for the simple reason that the whole approach of putting up an electrified fence is you get an engineer, and he designs a fence. This engineer hasn't seen an elephant in his life. He has never worked with subsistence farmers. He's never worked with African governments that are characterized by widespread corruption. So he designs this fence as if it's going to be one around his garden in Berlin, Washington, or London. He gives it to a contractor whose only interest is to maximize the amount of money they're going to make. They slap up this fence and they disappear. The fence doesn't work because nobody who knew anything about that situation, elephants, subsistence farmers, corrupt governments, had any role to play. Now you've got a fence. A fence can cost, the fence around Liwonde eventually cost millions of dollars. So you've got this massive, valuable resource, wire that everybody can use, solar panels that everybody can use, batteries that everybody can use, steel poles that everybody can use, laying there and serving no purpose whatsoever. What you've also given them for every kilometer of fence, you've given them 6 kilometers of snaring wire. So when you got that situation, your wildlife population starts collapsing. And my solution was to explain to everybody a fence has got 2 components. It's the materials, and then it's the human component. The people who are going to build, maintain, patrol, and repair. And that is what I asked IFAW for grant funding. They gave it to me. They were very happy. They would come visit, take lots of pictures. And it was a nice relationship.
And that sounds like IFAW has got a reasonably sensible approach to what was obviously a failure of previous conservation industry fundraising. In the past, people would fundraise in order to build fences because they look pretty in brochures that would encourage more people to donate funds. But now IFAW is coming in and saying, look, these fences, they're not working. Mike has explained they're not working. So we're going to grant fund Mike to make them work.
Yes, again, if we go back to what IFAW is in its essence, it's a fundraiser. Now, what you immediately find when dealing with first world people where the money is they want to hear your story and give you money and hear a good story back. They cannot deal with the complexities. So IFAW quickly learns that what you got to do is you got to spin a story to get the money, spin another story to tell the people how successful it is, and the money keeps rolling in. Now, there's a principle that if you don't understand, you'll never understand why people spend a lot of money on supposedly protecting animals and are roundly failing. And that's the principle that I call the more you burn, the more you earn. And in all of your large NGOs, you will have a small elite like you have almost in every corporation. Now, those people's salaries have to be published essentially with legislation that came out after the collapse of investment banking. So one of the metrics is that your core executive, what percentage do they earn of the turnover? So as long as you're getting in funds and you're burning them, you pay yourself more. You cannot afford to book a business class ticket. It's going to reduce your salary. Book a first class ticket, you've burned some money, the amount you've spent is your percentage of what you earn can go up thanks for you booking first class. And don't stay anywhere where there's not a 5-star hotel, otherwise your salary is going to come down. That is, the more you burn, the more you earn salary. And this, to me, IFAW's the worst organized crime network currently operating in the wildlife industry. So this is an organized crime network that has caused more damage to the landscape, the southern Malawi, Zambia, TFCA, than any other form of organized crime network that I've encountered in my 32 years of law enforcement in the environmental and wildlife industry.
Right, let's pull that statement apart. I mean, let's start with Kasungu. What happened at Kasungu? What specifically went wrong in recent years?
The huge milestone is the dumping of 263 elephants into a park that was completely unprepared to receive them. So of what I had listed as about 22 measures and precautions needed for a translocation, not one was in place, not one.
You said that Kasungu had several hundred elephants and that number went down to 25. So what would be 45. The problem? What would be the problem in putting 263 back in there?
The problem, and this is a problem that organizations like IFAW wish away. The problem is the 9 billion people on the planet. So your room to roam, you've got to now roam over people. Well, that's a conflict. The area around Kasungu National Park, when I came there in 1992, the population density would have been 1/4 of what it is now. So you've got just this avalanche of people coming and settling around Kasungu, number one. Number two, when you remove your large mammal population off a protected area, it affects the availability of water and it affects the vegetation, your prime vegetation. There's a relationship between large mammals and your vegetation. beyond any doubt. So there were two things that had happened from the time there was 1,000 elephants, and that was a population explosion, number one, and number two, a constant degrading of the vegetation. Then there's another thing. Elephants have a lifespan very similar to us. And they've got incredible memories. So if you've got a resident population and they want to move out of Kasungu to another resource, they will know exactly the routes. They will, and the spatial movement of elephants in the landscape is affected by a number of reasons, and over the last 20 years, the primary reason is poaching pressure. So your elephants will avoid certain areas where there's inherently high rates of poaching for a variety of reasons.
According to IFAW, the government of Malawi chose to relocate elephants from one park, Liwonde, that was at capacity, to another park, Kasungu, that had space, which IFAW paid for. Mike says that Kasungu didn't and doesn't have space.
So now you take 263 elephants from elephant heaven, a Liwonde floodplain that's got a river running through it like a highway, a huge river. So an elephant never needs to be further than 8 kilometers, a couple of hours walk, to a permanent massive water source. Plus, your floodplains dump nutrients from the whole Rift Valley system onto your Liwonde floodplains. So you take 263 elephants from elephant heaven, of high nutrient level, plentiful of water, you dump them in Miyombe woodland that is characterized by sandy soils, and the sandy soils result in your nutrients leaching and then heading down to Lake Malawi or the Luangwa Valley. So again, as I say, if you're sitting behind your desk in Washington and you spin the globe and you try and find where Malawi is, you can imagine that picking up 263 elephant here and dumping them there, and it doesn't seem too far apart when you look on the globe, that this is a fine idea. But it is madness. It is absolute madness. If somebody came to you, a neighbor, a niece, and said to you, I've got 263 cats and I really need to get rid of them. Will you help me dump them somewhere? You'll tell them 263 cats, no, you can't do that. But we do it with elephants, and for one reason only. How many millions can you burn? How many tens of millions can you earn? And this is what I'm saying. This is not a mistake. This is criminality. I have put in hundreds upon hundreds of people in jail for 5 years up to 18 years for crimes that do not compare with what is happening in Kasungu.
Can you explain some of the human-wildlife conflicts you get between the elephants and the locals in Kasungu since these animals arrived?
As soon as the elephants are dumped, my old informant network are sending me terrible videos and pictures of this chaos. So from the time they dumped those elephants to now, you can trace at least 13 deaths to that criminal dumping of 263 elephants. 13 deaths, over 50 orphans, 11,500 poor people having their lives fundamentally altered for the worse. What the irony is that I was asked to go to Kasungu in 2014 because of African corruption. By addressing African corruption, we transformed Kasungu completely. And we were undone by Western corruption.
What could either Malawi or preferably IFAW, in that they started this, do to undo the mistakes they've made? Well, how can they solve this problem?
If you are committing a series of crimes, one leading to another, okay, you pickpocketing, and then you go to break-ins, and then you start extortion. The first thing you got to do to make that right is to stop committing crimes. What IFAW must do is to stop committing crimes against the people and the animals and the long-term sustainability of this landscape, of this conservation landscape. If a starving villager who's had his crops raided, who's had his storeroom broken down, has his house broken into by elephants to steal the remaining food, if he kills an antelope, he goes to jail for 5 years. However, IFAW, if they just continue to spread other people's money around, they are spared any consequences of their crimes. So what you have a fundamental overthrow of the rule of law. So that needs to be restored. Now, and just a small message to you as a British taxpayer. You have been fleeced from 1992 until today to build up democracy, multi-party democracy in Africa. And it's such a worthy cause. But it has been undone by Western corruption. So in Malawi, your rule of law, your absolute cornerstone of democracy, because if people aren't treated equally, if one group may rape and pillage as they please, and the other group is punished for spitting on the sidewalk, democracy cannot get off the ground. The first thing that must happen, the rule of law must be brought back, so that Malawi can be restored to a democracy, which you've paid for handsomely. And then IFAW must be forced to stop committing crimes. And the first thing one's got to do is to assess the damage. So I would like to see the same large mammal count done by the British and German diplomatic missions in October 2014, which was repeated in October 2020 and showed the tripling of the elephant population. We need to do it again now, that we've got some idea of the damage. I believe Malawi's lost about 90 elephants in this disaster. The financial damage we set about establishing, it cannot be less than $4 million. So once you've forced IFAW to stop committing crimes, once you've restored the rule of law, then you pay the people that are injured compensation, so you don't have this resentment. These people that have been afflicted have killed 11 elephants that I know of, that I have confirmed, between the 1st of September and the 6th of October.
Thanks, Mike. And IFAW did not want to come onto the programme to answer Mike's charges against them. Instead, they pointed us to a press release on their website about the Kasungu elephant relocation. There's a link to that press release below.